Thank you for joining Meredith and I for our Pechacucha disability presentation on intellectual disabilities. In layman's terms, intellectual disability can be termed as a below-average cognitive ability. A more precise legal definition will be explained on the next slide. Intellectual disability is a disability characterized by significant limitations in both intellectual functioning and in adaptive behavior, which covers many everyday social and practical skills. This disability originates before the age of 18 during what is to be considered the developmental period. People with intellectual disabilities often indicate low intellectual functioning, also called intelligence, which refers to general mental capacity such as learning, reasoning, problem solving, and so on. One way to measure intellectual functioning is an IQ test. Generally, an IQ test score of around 70 indicates a limitation in intellectual functioning. Those with intellectual disabilities often have what would be considered underdeveloped adaptive behavior. Adaptive behavior is the collection of conceptual, social, and practical skills that are learned and performed by people in their everyday lives. Conceptual skills are made up of language and literacy, money, time, and number concepts. Social skills are made up of interpersonal skills, social responsibility, self-esteem, problem solving, and more. And practical skills involve the activities of daily living, occupational skills, healthcare, safety, the use of money, and more.
One cause for an intellectual disability could be due to prenatal contributions. People with Down syndrome can fall within this category and can have mild to moderate intellectual disabilities. Their intellectual disabilities can stem from chromosomal abnormalities. Most people have 46 chromosomes, while students with Down syndrome have 47. There are some characteristics of students with Down syndrome that separate them from their peers. First, they are smaller than their peers. They also have distinct physical features, such as the flattening of the back of the head, slanting of the eyelids, flat nose, and small hands and feet, just to name a few. Another prenatal contribution that can be the cause of intellectual disabilities would be unsafe maternal behaviors, such as smoking, the use of illicit drugs, or the consumption of alcohol before or during pregnancy. The use of these can harm the baby and result in FAS, or fetal alcohol syndrome. FAS is one of the leading causes of intellectual disabilities in the United States. There are also some characteristics with people who have FAS as well. As you can see in the picture, some examples would include small head, flat mid-face, low nasal bridge, and small eye openings. Now that we discussed prenatal contributions, there are two other main causes of intellectual disabilities. The first is perinatal conditions, which could include low birth weight, premature birth, or birth trauma. Then secondly, there are postnatal factors such as lead poisoning and meningitis. One thing that teachers should know about students with intellectual disabilities is that their memory is often impaired. Short-term memory can be very problematic for students with disabilities, and they might have problems following directions. Also, working memory proves to be troublesome as well, since the students are expected to retain information while performing it. Another key thing to know about students with intellectual disabilities is that they often experience difficulties focusing their attention and maintaining it. They are easily distracted, and it is difficult for these students to ignore other things going on around them. There are many benefits of using cooperative learning structures in a classroom with students who have intellectual disabilities. Cooperative learning gives the students the chance to speak their thoughts more freely, receive constructive feedback, interact and engage in questioning techniques, get additional practice on skills, and have increased opportunities to respond. One cooperative learning strategy that works in a classroom is called Think, Pair, Share. In this strategy, the teacher poses a question, lets the student think independently about the question that was posed and form their own ideas, And next, they pair with the student, discuss their thoughts, and then lastly, the students share their ideas with a larger group. The Think, Pair, Share technique encourages individual participation, and you can use it across all grade levels and class sizes. Think, Pair, Share strategy increases the kind of personal communications that are necessary for students to internally process, organize, and retain ideas. This could be very helpful when teaching students with intellectual disabilities. Another strategy that you could use in the classroom to help students with intellectual disabilities is to break down tasks into smaller steps. Each learning task can be introduced one at a time. This helps to avoid overwhelming the student. Once a student has mastered one skill, you can move on to the next step.
Lengthy verbal directions and abstract lectures are ineffective teaching methods for most audiences, but especially for those with intellectual disabilities. Students with intellectual disabilities are kinesthetic learners, and therefore would learn best by performing hands-on tasks. This strategy presents information in a more concrete and more easily observable way for these students. The use of real materials or actual tools in natural environments, otherwise known as assistive technology, is an essential component in the effective instruction of students with intellectual disabilities. Although these materials would be labeled as low-tech teaching resources, they serve to both motivate the student and facilitate generalization to multiple environments. A fourth teaching strategy that could be implemented with students with intellectual disabilities is direct and immediate feedback. This enables the students to make the connection between their behavior and the teacher's response. Without providing this feedback makes it difficult for students with intellectual disabilities to form these connections between cause and effect, causing the learning point to be missed. After all of this, our question to you is, how would you modify your lesson plans and differentiate for students with intellectual disabilities in your classroom without making them feel as though they were the only ones getting special treatment? It can be a tricky topic of discussion as many students just struggle to fit in with the crowd. So, what do you think? Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to Meredith and I speak on intellectual disabilities. We hope we help you to learn a little something about the disability itself and some strategies to implement in your future or current classrooms.